The untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing game's been missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, Andre Ward. It's been a minute since we made a video about Pastor Ward, about SOG, about Andre Ward. It's been a while, champ. It's been a while since we talked about Andre Ward. You know, and for those of you who've been watching me for a long time, you guys can remember all the way back to 2016, 2017. I used to make a lot of videos about Andre Ward. You know, most of them not so nice videos. I apologize, Andre, for saying mean things about you. I've grown to respect Andre Ward as a commentator. And whether I liked him or not, he was a damn good fighter when he was fighting. But yeah, shout out to Andre Ward, man. Now, speaking of Andre Ward, you know, he's been on Instagram, he's been on the social media feeds, posting all these videos, pretty much saying, my hands still work. He says my hands still work. He's been posting these training footage of him in the gym, and he looks good. And he's like dropping these little subtle hints that he might be coming back. Now, this has been an ongoing thing with Andre Ward. It seems like anytime he posts videos about himself training, people think he's coming back. But I'll be honest with you guys, I look at boxing, and I look at, you know, how Andre Ward has been in the media recently. Like, okay, so he's posted not just one but two clips of himself training recently, and you can say I'm overanalyzing this, but this is my perspective. You guys can turn the video off and go somewhere else, but this is my perspective. That's why you're here. Okay, Andre Ward has posted multiple clips of himself, like, shadow boxing and training, and he's been saying things like, these hands still work, all right? And I feel like, and I believe that that's a subtle way of saying, like, look, these hands still work and I'm coming back. He's not going to say that part, but I feel like that's what he means when he says, like, these hands still work and I'm coming back. And then, like, he was on an interview with Max Kellerman talking about, Max Kellerman asked him who he'd like to fight, who he would have fought between Joshua and Canelo, and he said Joshua. And in the past, there's been times early in his retirement in the past where he's hinted at fighting Canelo and things of that nature. So my thing is this, right? Canelo Alvarez, and we're segueing into Canelo. Canelo Alvarez, he's regarded by most people in boxing as the pound-for-pound king of boxing. Not by me, but by most, as the pound-for-pound best fighter in the sport right now, okay? And because of that, there's a perception that nobody from 160 to 175 can really give him a good fight or beat him. You know, that's the consensus for most people. I don't believe that. I think Demetrius Andrade have a great chance against him. I think Benavidez have a great chance against him. And I think Dimitri Bivol would have a great chance against him. I think all these guys would have a great chance against Canelo. You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't write any of those guys off. But there's nobody that I've seen, at least, in the 160 pound to 175 pound division that the majority of the population truly believes, consensus-wise, can beat Canelo Alvarez. And that's why I think Andre Ward came back to boxing and fought Canelo. He could be that guy, because when we talk about Andre Ward, you know, he's someone that has a great blend of boxing and IQ, and that reflects a lot in his commentary. You can see why he was such a successful fighter when you hear his opinions and his insights on boxing. So his boxing IQ was top notch. It was top drawer. It was creme de la creme. It was amazing. His boxing IQ was great. Then, aside from his boxing IQ, he had the right amount of grit, of ruggedness on the inside. Sometimes you could even say a bit of nastiness, and that's what I think that's what you need to be Canelo Alvarez. He wasn't the fastest guy in the world, but he knew when to use his reflexes. He was smart and when to apply his reflexes, and he knew how to use those reflexes. And just overall, the ability to land flush punches, which, you know, even though he's not a big puncher and never had the reputation for being a big puncher, we saw when he landed that straight right hand on Kovalev's chin that it buckled his knees. You know what I'm saying? So he was an A-level fighter, whether you like his style or not. I wasn't a fan of his style, but he was an A-level fighter, and he had the A-level boxing IQ. And I feel like, you know, with Canelo Alvarez, right? When we look at Canelo's last two fights in particular, okay, against Callum Smith and Avni Yildirim, these have both been, especially the Callum Smith fight, very, very big mismatches in my opinion. They've both been big mismatches. And with the Callum Smith fight, they sold it as a credible fight because Caleb Bell had the trinkets and he had the sparkling undefeated record. But stripped away the trinkets, and Callum Smith is just a high level European fighter. You know, about maybe a notch above Rocky Fielding. And I'm being honest, that's what he was. I never really saw that as a credible fight. And Avni Yildirim was a paid sparring session and vacation in Canelo in Miami. You know, that's what it was. He might as well have been like Will Smith and Martin Lawrence in Bad Boys 2, just having a great time. So Canelo Alvarez has to fight someone. He's got to challenge himself, you know, and I think Andre Ward will be a great fight. And not only that, this fight is very sellable. Like the Canelo Smith fight, you had to market and you had to sell. The Alvarez fight, you had to market and you have to sell. Andre Ward and Canelo sells itself. It sells itself because, number one, like Andre Ward wasn't a big ticket seller when he fought in the sport. Like on his own, he's not a big ticket seller. Because I mean, when he fought Kovalev in the rematch, they fought at the Mandalay Bay, which holds about 13,000 ish, something like that. Only 6,000 or maybe 7,000 people paid for the tickets. I was one of them. Fun fact. So he was never a big ticket seller on his own. But when he comes together with a guy like Canelo, then I think it makes it for an explosive fight and a very box office attractive fight because of the fact that Andre Ward, right? Andre Ward is the last American gold medalist. Andre Ward is widely regarded as, you know, one of the best super middleweights of all time, right up there with Joe Calzaghe. And Andre Ward is someone that people, whether they like him or not, are going to believe can beat Canelo. And that enough is going to sell the fight. So I would love that fight. I love that fight. And we will get to see Canelo Alvarez. We'll see how good Canelo Alvarez really is when he fights Andre Ward, because, you know, it's easy for Canelo Alvarez to look good against Avni Yildirim and Callum Smith, because those guys have styles that favor how he fights. Canelo Alvarez is a flat-footed counter puncher who likes to control the pace. And he hasn't fought anybody that can challenge those things about him, which is why I'm so harsh and so critical of his resume, which is why I want to see him fight Demetrius Andrade and Bivol and Benavidez, because those guys can penetrate and offset some of the things that he likes to do, and that's going to have to force Canelo to adjust, and I don't think he'll be able to adjust, but I want him to fight those guys so he can show me how good he is if he can adjust, you know what I'm saying? So this fight right here, you know, I don't think it's going to happen this year. I don't think Andre Ward is going to come back like right away, but I do believe, and this is only my belief, I do believe that Andre Ward will come back in 2022. 2022, I think he'll be back, and I would expect him to take like a tune-up fight or two. And I think he'll come back and he'll fight Canelo, and it'll be something that can get Andre Ward out of bed. It'll be something he can get up for, and I'm sure that they're gonna throw a lot of money at him at some point, because after he beats Saunders, which he will, and after he beats whoever, like Caleb Plant, which I believe he will as well, you know, is he gonna want to fight Demetrius? I don't know. I just think at some point in time the Andre Ward fight's gonna happen, and I'm just getting my thoughts there about it. So you guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Take the time to subscribe, and like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just giving Daniel. So until next time, take care, guys.